What if you could access a library of wisdom that's been preserved for over 2,500 years? Well, that's pretty much what the Pali Canon is. And it's not just one book. We're talking about a massive collection of the Buddhist teachings, one of the oldest, most extensive spiritual libraries on the entire planet. So let's get into it. But okay, that brings up a huge question, right? When the Buddha passed away, his followers had this massive problem on their hands. I mean, think about it. There were no printing presses, no digital files, nothing. The entirety of the teachings had to be preserved through human memory. So how on earth do you make sure thousands of these talks stay pure and unchanged as they're passed from one person to the next for centuries? So right after the Buddha's death, you've got most of the monks grieving. And then this one monk, a guy named Subhadda, says something just wild. He basically says, "Hey, stop crying. We're lucky to be rid of the big guy. Now we can do whatever we want." And those words just sent a shockwave through the community. This wasn't just some disrespectful comment, it was this terrifying glimpse into a future where the entire teaching could just fall apart and dissolve into chaos now that the teacher was gone. Well, an elder monk named Mahakassapa heard this and knew he had to act, and act fast. He immediately called for what we now know as the First Buddhist Council. And the mission was clear: get 500 of the most accomplished, most enlightened monks together in one place to recite, organize, and basically lock down the Buddhist teachings before it was too late. So think about that. This moment of pure crisis, this very real fear of losing absolutely everything, is what directly led to the creation of one of the most brilliantly structured spiritual collections in human history. This wasn't some casual project, It was an emergency preservation effort born out of necessity. So what was their solution? I mean, how do you even begin to organize such a huge body of knowledge? Well, they came up with this really elegant system, a framework that's held up for centuries. The Tipitaka, which translates to the three baskets of wisdom. And what I find so cool is the name itself. Tipitaka literally just means three baskets. You can actually picture it, right? Scribes in ancient India carrying these long palm leaf manuscripts around in literal baskets. So the name itself points to this very practical solution for sorting and, containing this massive library of teachings. And here's how that system breaks down. The first basket, the Vinaya Pitaka, that's the discipline. It's all the rules for the monks and nuns. The second one, the Sutta Pitaka, holds the discourses. These are the actual sermons and teachings from the Buddha himself. And then the third, the Abhidhamma Pitaka, is the higher doctrine. We're talking a really deep philosophical dive into the nature of reality. So you've got it all: discipline, discourse, and deep philosophy. Okay, but let's talk about those rules for a second. They weren't just some abstract list handed down from on high. No, they were super practical, and they were born from actual real-life situations. And that first basket, the Vinaya Pitaka, the one with all the rules, gives us a perfect look at exactly how this worked. Believe it or not, for the first 20 years, there were no formal rules at all. Why? Because there were no major problems. But then, a monk named Sudina, he broke his vow in a pretty serious way. And that one specific, real-world event is what led the Buddha to lay down the very first major rule, the first parajika. See? It wasn't some abstract principle. It was a direct response to a problem. And this event right here set the pattern for how the entire code of conduct was built, one case at a time. Okay, so we're getting this picture, right? A great council comes together, they set everything in stone, they create rules based on real events. But what if that's not the whole story? What if the canon itself hints that it wasn't actually finished all at once? So the traditional view is that the entire library, the whole shebang, was finalized right there at that first council. But modern scholarship, from folks who've looked really closely at the texts themselves, points to a totally different story. It suggests the Pali Canon was more like a living document, a gradual compilation that actually grew and was polished over several hundred years. And the crazy thing is, the proof is right there inside the canon. For instance, the Abhidhamma, that third basket of super deep philosophy, it's not even mentioned in the accounts of the first two councils. And you can literally watch the monastic code grow over time, from 152 rules to the 227 we have today. The canon is basically telling its own origin story, showing us how it evolved. So, we've seen how this incredible library was put together and how it grew over time, but that leaves us with the biggest question of all. What is it all for? What's the ultimate point of all these rules and stories and philosophies? Well, the answer is something really, really profound. The best way to think about the Pali Canon isn't as a rule book. It's much more like a map, a really detailed map that charts out every single possible realm of existence, every state of being that a living thing can find itself in. Now, according to these teachings, there are basically 9 abodes, or 9 primary homes for living beings. This includes, our human world, but also heavenly realms, and even those super refined states you can reach in deep meditation. It's a complete map of the cosmos, really. But here's the twist, and this is the most important part. The whole point of the map isn't to help you find a nice, cozy spot to settle down in one of those 9 realms. Nope. The entire purpose of the map is to show you how to get off the map completely. It's about finding a 10th place. And this is where it gets really mind-bending. The 10th place isn't just another destination on the list. It's represented by the number 0. This is Nibbana, the state of total liberation. And just like the number 0, it doesn't have a value in and of itself, but it's what gives meaning to all the other numbers. It's a state described as empty, open, and clear, totally beyond all the labels and locations on the map. It's ultimate freedom. So when you look at it that way, the Pali Canon is so much more than just a library. It's this incredible tool, painstakingly preserved, designed to guide you through every corner of known reality, only to point you towards the exit. Which leaves us with one final, big question to think about. What does it really mean to seek a kind of wisdom that's designed to point beyond wisdom itself?